We've all heard the Beatitudes before. Lori talked about all of them last week. Each Beatitude consists of some characteristic and admirable. If we go down the line, the first few sound like they make sense. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Then you get to this verse. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land. Now if you're like me, you're scratching your head, wondering why the poor in spirit get the kingdom of heaven, and meek just get land. The next one seems to be straightforward. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be satisfied. And then you have, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. This seems like a fitting reward, but don't we already receive God's mercy in the Eucharist and confession? Do we also have to be merciful to receive mercy? Seems like these two categories got the short end of the stick. First, let's take a look at what meekness means. Meekness is not weakness. Rather, it is a humble trust in and obedience to God, even while enduring the brokenness of this world. This is why the meek inherit the earth and the new creation, because they accept God's will for heavenly good over their own desire for material good. Meekness is easy to mistake for weakness, because it often means doing things we don't enjoy with other people and accepting difficulties and hardships in life. However, true meekness takes incredible strength and confidence in your understanding of your relationship with God. How does mercy relate to meekness? Have you ever heard someone say, I put myself at your mercy? Maybe in a movie or a book. To receive mercy, you first need the willingness to submit to the will of whoever you would like to forgive, no matter what he decides. Sincere forgiveness has never been forced out of anyone. Meekness is therefore a necessary step in receiving mercy. The epitome of meekness is, of course, Jesus. He says himself in Matthew 11:28-30, you can flip to that, or not add it in your sheets. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for yourself. For my yoke is easy and my burden light. Jesus had a hard life. His family had to run away to Egypt when he was a baby. Before beginning his ministry, he lived out in the wilderness without food for 40 days. During his ministry, his disciples often did not understand what he was trying to teach them. The Pharisees followed him around all the time, trying to catch him in his words and have him executed. Despite all this, he always does the will of his Father, even when that means he must endure excruciating torture and die nailed to the cross. What does Jesus say right before he dies? Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. Jesus' life of utter meekness is what gains for us salvation, God's mercy. He puts himself in our place to say, God, I put myself at your mercy, and takes that punishment and justice for us. A great example of someone who took Jesus' example of meekness to heart was St. Francis de Sales. This guy had a bad temper. However, he learned to master it to the point that now people refer to him as the gentleman saint, because of his courteous and gentle manner and great patience. He lived in France at the time of the Protestant Revolution, when many people were turning away from the Catholic faith for new forms of Christianity, such as Calvinism. St. Francis de Sales was sent to call back those who had converted to Calvinism in a region called Chambray. Just talking to the Calvinists was extremely difficult, because many of them considered him to be a sorcerer. However, this did not deter him from his mission. After realizing that no one would talk with him, he began writing pamphlets and just slipping them under people's doors. After 3 years walking from door to door doing this, it is estimated that he brought back to the Catholic faith about 40,000 of the 60,000 Calvinists in the region he revived. Another example of meekness and mercy in action is Mother, now Saint Teresa of Calcutta. She initially was drawn to religious life because she wanted to be a missionary. And for the first 20 or so years after becoming a nun, she simply taught at a school run by her older sisters in Calcutta, India. Eventually, after witnessing so many people struggling in the streets, she heard a call from God and obeyed. She founded a new order, the Missionaries of Charity, and began the work for the poor, for which she is most well known. Works of mercy are really important to our faith. In the Catechism, paragraph 2447, it says, instructing, advising, consoling, comforting are spiritual works of mercy, as are forgiving and bearing alms patiently. The corporal works of mercy consist especially in feeding the hungry, sheltering the homeless, clothing the naked, visiting the sick in prison, and burying the dead. Among all these, giving alms to the poor is one of the chief witnesses to fraternal charity. It is also a work of justice pleasing to God. For much of its history, India has had a caste system in which some people are grouped into different hierarchical classes based on their family lineage, profession, or because of disease such as leprosy. Everyone in a caste has a roughly similar quality of life, and historically, no one was allowed to change between castes. Even today, people from one caste typically do not marry anyone outside of their caste. At the bottom of this system are the so-called untouchables, because they are considered ritually unclean, and no one from any other caste is allowed to talk to or touch them. These are the people that Mother Teresa and her sisters set out to serve. Each day, they would go into the streets and talk to these untouchables to bring them food or water. If they were in a very critical condition, they might also bring them back to their hospital rooms to care for them, even though some people did not have them to live. How do we encounter and develop meekness and mercy in our own lives? After all, none of us are likely to die for our faith or become missionaries in India. Practicing meekness can be as simple as taking the time to do some extra drills with that really annoying guy on your team when he asks for some pointers, or just being there to listen to and encourage a friend or classmate who's feeling down, even when you have 1,000 other things to do that day. Doing the right thing is always going to be hard. It is even harder to do with a good attitude. Y'all are still in high school, so most likely your parents give alms during Mass and not you. However, you can still give alms with your time and your actions. Maybe you help out at Mass by being an altar server or a lector, or by singing or playing music. Outside of Mass, you might help out at a local food pantry or homeless shelter, or maybe you just donate your old clothes you had worn in the pot. For me growing up, playing music for Mass was a weekly routine. My parents had me and all three of my brothers get to Mass an hour early every Sunday to practice. On top of already having band music practice for school, it was a lot. It certainly wasn't always easy getting there on time and trying to pay attention to Mass and music at the same time. However, I'm really grateful to my mom and my dad for making me do that, because it taught me the importance of doing concrete good with the time and gifts we receive. We all live in community. We interact with real people on a day-to-day basis. And if we are to become like Jesus and be truly meek and merciful, then we have to make meekness and mercy real in our lives and in our community. God loves us so much that He is physically present to us in the sacraments, especially the Eucharist and in confession, where the priest acts in the person of Christ. When we go to confession, we receive God's mercy. But that mercy is not supposed to end there. Remember the parable about the man who begged to be forgiven his debts, only to turn around and start demanding money from someone else who owed him? You should walk out of that confessional beaming God's mercy to everyone around you. In the end, meekness and mercy come down to choosing in each moment to say, God, I put my words, my actions, my very self in your hands.
Thank you, Matt.